Three words revolutionized the game of basketball forever. The college game was changed, and the NBA was transformed into one of the leaders of American sports because of two men and their rivalry. Magic versus Bird. This is Basketball History Vault, and this is the story of Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. Before Magic Johnson and Larry Bird brought the NBA into prominence, the league was struggling mightily. 17 of the 22 teams were not financially viable and losing money. Drugs ran rampant amongst the players. The league was on the brink of collapse. Major League Baseball still held a tight grip as America's favorite sport, and the NFL's popularity kept consistently jumping. Racial tensions were also a problem, as the NBA was starting to get viewed as a black league, and the constant fights and drug use didn't help to eliminate those prejudices. The more exciting and faster-paced ABA existed until the merger in 1976, adding to the league's battle for popularity amongst sports fans in America. Due to all its problems, ratings for an average NBA game were very bad. At the time, there were only 3 television networks. Even then, the NBA Finals weren't even shown live. They were aired on tape delay. The NBA Finals in 1979 received a 7.2 Nielsen rating, indicating what percentage of televisions had the games on. For context, a 20.0 rating would be good for 30th place that year. And piling onto that, in the early 1970s, the average attendance for an NBA game was only 8,000 fans. The on-court product was not the main problem. At a time with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Pete Maravich, Julius Erving, Bob Lanier, Clyde Frazier, Elvin Hayes, George Gervin, and more Hall of Fame superstars, the league was faltering. While these issues were prevalent in the NBA, 2 youngsters in Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were dealing with their own problems long before their meteoric rise. The Hick from French Lick is a fun nickname that honors the roots of the legendary Larry Bird. He was a basketball star at Springs Valley High School in French Lick, but nothing came easy for Bird. One of 6 children, Bird grew up very poor. His father, Claude Joseph Bird, Joe for short, was a Korean War vet who struggled with depression and alcoholism following his return. Joe worked in construction, but his vices impeded him from holding a steady job. Bird's mother, Georgia, worked 2 jobs, mostly as a waitress. The Birds weren't oppressively poor, but it was certainly there. By the time he got to Springs Valley High School, Larry was an excellent basketball player. He averaged just under 23 points per game his high school career, and he averaged over 30 a game his senior year, as well as over 20 rebounds a game. Larry's parents were rarely in attendance, though. His father was not a fan of large crowds, so he usually stayed home. But Bird has iterated that he was proud of him. There was a game once where Bird had over 30 in the first half. The story goes that Larry's uncle called Joe at halftime and ordered him to come to the game to watch him break the Orange County scoring record. Joe walked to the gym, since they did not have a car, and watched his son drop 54 points to break the record, as well as 38 rebounds, a stat line for the record books. Landing at Indiana State University was not due to a lack of high-level suitors for Bird. He was well recruited out of high school, but his path there was far from your typical recruiting story. Larry originally committed and attended Indiana University to go and play for legendary coach Bob Knight and the Hoosiers. His tenure at IU lasted a whopping 24 days. Larry, a shy, introverted person from a small town, felt the culture shock of moving to a big campus. He had saved money for at least a year at IU, but he says it wasn't enough. Within the year, Larry's father, Joe, took his own life. Within the next year, Larry had gotten married and divorced, but his then ex-wife was pregnant with his daughter. He hadn't completely abandoned basketball after IU, though. He started practicing with a local Northwood Institute team, but dropped out again 6 weeks later. This is when the famous story of him becoming a garbage man came to fruition. He wasn't only a garbage man, but worked a maintenance job with his old friend, Beezer Carnes, cleaning up his hometown of French Lick. While working this job, Bird would play basketball with the kitchen staff of a restaurant. The story goes that this is where Indiana State assistant Bill Hodges found him and convinced him to become a Sycamore. Larry was an instant success at Indiana State. The year before his arrival, they were 13-12. His first season, they went 25-3 and made the NIT, and Larry averaged almost 33 points and over 13 rebounds per game. In his junior year, Bird led the Sycamores to a 23-9 record, just missing an NCAA tournament berth when they lost to Creighton in the Missouri Valley Conference Championship.
Double team, they look for Apke. Apke shoots a shot, hits it! Apke with 2 seconds to go hits it, and Creighton leads 54-52.
It was somewhat of a letdown year given the high expectations and being ranked number 4 in the AP poll halfway through the season. However, everything came together in Bird's senior season. Though Larry Bird was drafted number 6 overall by the Boston Celtics in the 1978 NBA draft, he chose to return to Indiana State for his senior season. The Sycamores entered the 1978-79 season unranked in the AP poll, but solidified themselves as a national championship contender throughout the year. Entering the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, Indiana State was a perfect 26-0 and won all 3 games to enter the NCAA tournament for the first time in the program's history, an undefeated 29-0 and ranked number 1 in the AP poll. Bird and company took care of business in the first 2 rounds against Virginia Tech and number 16 Oklahoma. A narrow 2-point win over number 5 Sidney Moncrief-led Arkansas sent the Sycamore to the Final Four at a perfect 32-0 to face number 6 DePaul. DePaul boasted future number 1 overall pick Mark Aguirre and a tough team that wouldn't go away. However, Larry Bird was not afraid of the moment. He had one of the greatest individual performances in NCAA tournament history against DePaul, putting up 35 points, 16 rebounds, and 9 assists while shooting 16 out of 19 from the floor. DePaul had the ball, down by 1 with under 30 seconds left, and missed a jump shot with just 4 seconds on the clock. Indiana State got the board and hit a free throw, and DePaul couldn't score again. The Sycamores won this game 76-74, entering the national championship at 33-0. This was the culmination of Bird's career up to this point. All of the hardships he'd been through, leaving Indiana and feeling like he let his hometown down, almost quitting basketball entirely before going to Indiana State. And this wasn't some rinky-dink feel-good story to make mothers across the country tear up. This was an opportunity for immortality. This was an opportunity to be the undefeated national champion, Indiana State Sycamores, a seemingly impossible feat for a small, mostly unknown Missouri Valley school, was now 1 game away, 40 more minutes of basketball, but a magically dominant team out of East Lansing stood in the way, led by its superstar sophomore guard, Irving Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was one of 9 children growing up. His father, Irving Sr., was a General Motors assembly worker who also did janitorial work at a used car lot and collected trash. Magic would sometimes join his father on his garbage route and was teased for being a garbage man. His mother, Christine, was a school custodian who spent countless time cleaning the house and setting up meals for all 9 children. Magic learned true work ethic from his parents, and he applied this knowledge to basketball. Stories of his work ethic are that of legend, with Magic himself saying he would be playing all day, dribbling back and forth to the corner store, and even split with his basketball. Both of his parents played basketball, and he was determined to become the best player he possibly could. It's been well documented that Magic was a star for a very long time. He was once recorded as scoring 48 points in a middle school game. When he was getting ready to attend high school, Magic was preparing to join Sexton High School. Sexton was just a few blocks away from his home, had a very successful basketball team, and was a predominantly black school. However, he soon learned that he would be attending Everett High School, a predominantly white school, where his brother Larry and sister Pearl attended the year before. Both of his siblings experienced hateful acts of racism. Some white parents refused to send their kids to school, and Larry was kicked off the basketball team for a confrontation with another player, not the ideal experience. Magic's high school career started off tumultuously. He was growing increasingly frustrated with the racism he felt at his school. His new teammates ignored him during practices and refused to pass him the ball on the court. Yes, they were refusing to pass Magic Johnson the basketball. He was miserable his first few months there, but he eventually learned how to navigate the prejudices he faced, and his game spoke for itself. At 15, Johnson dropped 36 points, 18 rebounds, and 16 assists. He was given the nickname Magic after this dazzling performance. Magic's high school career was nothing short of spectacular. He was named All-State in Michigan twice and was a McDonald's All-American as a senior, where he averaged over 28 points a game and just under 17 rebounds. He led Everett to a state championship win in overtime his senior year to cap off an incredible 27-1 record. Magic was considered one of the greatest high school players to come out of Michigan when he graduated. Before that famous senior season, tragedy struck at Everett High School. Magic's best friend, Reggie Chastain, had passed away in a car accident the summer before their senior year. Magic attributes a lot of who he became to Reggie, saying Reggie was who he thought he should be. Apparently, Magic was supposed to be with his friend that night of the accident, but had unusually gone home early. When he found out about his friend the next day, he says he was uncontrollably crying for hours. He says Reggie always pushed him to do more and be better, and saw the greatness in him before anyone else, and it's probably safe to say he'd be proud of what his friend became. Magic wanted to stay close to home, even though he was being recruited by the biggest blue bloods at the time, Indiana and UCLA. His choices boiled down to Michigan and Michigan State, and the current talent in East Lansing sold him, and he officially chose to play at Michigan State. Even though MSU had won only 10 games the season before, top dogs in Greg Kessler and Bob Chapman were still there and just needed a superstar catalyst to jumpstart the program. In Magic's freshman year at Michigan State, he averaged 17 points a game, just under 8 rebounds, and about 8 assists a game. His huge frame and unique style of play took the college world by storm. He wasn't putting up Bird or Maravich numbers, but his impact was felt. Magic led his team to a 25-5 record that year, ultimately falling in the Elite Eight to eventual champion Kentucky by just 3 points. There was a buzz and high expectations around East Lansing heading into Magic's sophomore year. Ranked at number 7 in the AP preseason poll, this team was expected to compete for a national championship. A few weeks into the season, the Spartans had jumped up to the prestigious number 1 in the poll. However, they went on a bit of a skid, losing 4 out of 7 games and falling to number 14. Then they kicked it into another gear. Michigan State had rattled off 10 straight wins before dropping the regular season finale against Wisconsin and Madison. The Big Ten didn't have a conference tournament, so it was straight to the NCAA tournament for the Spartans. They entered as a 2 seed, and they were still expected to make a run for the championship. And they did just that. The Magic-led Spartans beat Lamar University by 31, LSU by 16, and Notre Dame by 12 to secure a spot in the Final Four where they'd be facing off against Cinderella, number 9 seeded Penn. Penn was no slouch as a number 9 seeded Ivy League school. They beat 23-6 Iona, led by the legendary Jim Valvano. They followed that up by knocking off number 1 seeded North Carolina, led by Dean Smith. Their next victim, 26-3 Syracuse, led by Jim Boeheim. Finally, in their Elite Eight game, Penn knocked off Lou Carnesecca and St. John's to head to the Final Four. Jimmy V, Dean Smith, Lou Carnesecca, Jim Boeheim, a gauntlet of legendary coaches to get to the Final Four. David was looking to take down Goliath from East Lansing. Unfortunately for Penn, they ran into this scoring-hot Michigan State team with one of the greatest players of all time at the helm. The Spartans took care of business in frighteningly dominant fashion, winning 101-67, led by Magic's triple-double with 29 points, 10 boards, and 10 assists on 9 out of 10 shooting. The stage was now set. One of the most highly touted stars in Magic Johnson, the leader of one of the greatest stories college basketball had ever seen in Larry Bird. It was clear that greatness was upon the sports world. Was it going to be a storybook ending for Indiana State and Bird? Or would the sheer talent of Michigan State overpower the Sycamores? The significance of this game went far beyond who was going to hang a banner in the rafters. This game was the single most important basketball game in history. That is not an understatement, nor is it hyperbole. Earlier we said the NBA Finals had a 7.2 Nielsen rating in 1979. Well, this national championship more than tripled that, with a 24.1 rating, the highest ever for any basketball game in history. Almost 1 in every 4 televisions in America had Indiana State versus Michigan State playing, totaling in over 35 million views. It was and still is the most watched championship game in basketball history. The game itself didn't follow the rest of the Hollywood script, unfortunately. Michigan State stayed insanely hot, shooting over 60% from the field. Magic Johnson had 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on 8 out of 15 shooting, and Greg Kessler added 19, 8, and 9 as well. Their only flaw in this game was turning the ball over 16 times to keep the Sycamores in the game. Bird struggled in this game. He averaged 30 points a game during his illustrious college career, but he was held to just 19 in the championship on 7 out of 21 shooting. He also added 13 boards and 5 steals, but his efforts weren't enough. Michigan State wins the most important basketball game in history, 75-64. Magic declared for the 1979 draft, where he was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. The Los Angeles Lakers coincidentally had that pick because the league worst New Orleans Jazz had signed Gail Goodrich a few seasons prior. And according to the NBA's restricted free agency rules at the time, the Lakers were awarded the Jazz's 1979 first-round pick. The Lakers selected Magic, and Bird officially joined the Celtics. The 2 biggest names in basketball were now in the NBA on the 2 most important and historical franchises in the league's history. It did not take long for their rivalry and their elite skill sets to take over the entire landscape of the NBA. Their first meeting in the league came on December 28, 1979. Commissioner at the time, Larry O'Brien, called it a playoff atmosphere. And just like the national championship, Magic took the first ever matchup in the NBA with the Lakers, winning 123-105. Magic finished with 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, while Bird had 16 points himself. The Celtics went on to win 61 games during Larry Bird's rookie season, a 32-win differential from the disastrous 29-win season the year before, averaging over 21 points per game with 10 rebounds and 4 assists per game. Bird won the Rookie of the Year award, almost unanimously, capturing 63 out of 66 votes. Bird was also named to the All-NBA First Team as a rookie, and only Tim Duncan has done so since then. Magic was still an all-star as a rookie in his own right, averaging 18 points a game with over 7 rebounds and 7 assists and almost 2.5 steals. The Lakers won 60 games themselves in the 1979-80 NBA season, and it seemed like Bird versus Magic was on a crash course to happen in the 1980 NBA Finals. Magic and the Lakers took care of business and cruised to the NBA Finals, while Bird and the Celtics fell to the Julius Erving-led 76ers in 5 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Lakers jumped out to a 3-2 lead in the series over the Sixers when it was reported that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the best player in the league at the time, was going to miss Game 6. He had just come off a 40-point outing in the Lakers' narrow 5-point win in Game 5, and many thought the Sixers were going to clean up at home and force a Game 7. They thought wrong. Magic notoriously started at center in Game 6, putting up a ridiculous 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists to capture the NBA championship and win Finals MVP as a rookie. Magic 1, Bird 0. The conference finals loss didn't shake Bird and Boston as they went out and won 60 games yet again, capturing the top seed in the East. After taking care of the Bulls, the Celtics faced off against the same Sixers team that bounced them the year before. Philly jumped out to a 3-1 series lead and looked to be well on their way to going to the NBA Finals once again. Then Larry Legend was born. Facing elimination in Game 5, Bird had 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists, leading Boston to a 111-109 victory. Next was the hardest one, Game 6 in Philadelphia. The Sixers lost to Magic at home in Game 6, losing the finals the year before, and could not let that happen again and send the series back to Boston. Well, they did. After going down 13 after the first quarter, Boston clawed their way back and won another insanely close game, 100-98. Led by Larry Bird's 25 points and 16 rebounds, the series went back to Boston for a Game 7. The game was as intense as basketball could possibly be. It was tight and close throughout, all the way until the end when the Sixers had the ball on a sideline out of bounds with 1 second left, down 1. The inbound was an errant pass, and Boston was heading to the championship, winning 91-90. Magic, on the other hand, had a particularly rough 1980-81 season. He only played 37 games after injuring his knee early in the season, but the Lakers still won 54 games and were expected to make another run. However, the 40-42 Houston Rockets upset the Lakers in 3 games in the first round, sending Magic home. He shot just 2 for 14 in Game 3 and airballed the potential game-winning floater. Bird and the Celtics took care of the Rockets and won in 6 games. Magic won, Bird won. They hadn't played in the finals yet, but the rivalry between Bird and Magic was real. The next season, the Celtics lost in Game 7 at home to the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Lakers were waiting in the NBA Finals for the winner. The entire Boston crowd broke into a Beat LA chant, one that's lasted for over 40 years now.
Our Miller most valuable player is going to be Julius Erving.
Magic and the Lakers ended up beating the Sixers in 6 games again, and Magic took home his second Finals MVP award. Magic 2, Bird 1. The Lakers and Sixers played yet again in the finals after Bird and the Celtics were swept by the Milwaukee Bucks that year. This time, the Sixers got the Lakers, and for the first time since the two entered the league, someone else won the title. The first meeting in the NBA Finals would happen the next year, in the 1983-84 Finals. The matchup had been teased for 4 years prior, but it was finally happening. Bird and the Celtics won 62 games, and he was named the NBA's most valuable player this season. Magic and the Lakers won 54 games, and he was voted onto the All-NBA First Team alongside Bird for the second consecutive season. The finals were a wicked back-and-forth affair. The team split the first two games before Los Angeles blew out the Celtics by 33 points in the first game in LA. Boston bounced back, however, stealing Game 4, 129-125, behind Bird's marvelous 29-point, 21-rebound performance. Bird went and dominated again in Game 5, posting 34 points and 17 rebounds in the 121-103 victory. Game 6 saw a fantastic duel, where Magic put up 21 points and 10 assists against Bird's 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists. But Kareem ended up being the biggest difference in the game, putting up 30 points and 10 rebounds. Now it was Game 7. These two were obviously no stranger to high-pressure games. But this one felt different. Each already had rings in the NBA, but this was the ultimate rematch from 1979. Bird had to watch Magic win 3 total titles to his 1 since this rivalry was born, and he played like he wanted to catch up. While he didn't shoot the ball very efficiently, Bird put up 20 points and 12 rebounds to Magic's 16 points and 15 assists, and Boston took Game 7 at home, winning 111-102. Bird earned his first ever Finals MVP award and avenged his loss from his days with the Sycamores. Magic 2, Bird 2. The 1984-85 season was another one for the books. Larry won his second consecutive MVP award as the Celtics won 63 games to claim the league's best record. Magic finished second in MVP voting and was named to the All-NBA First Team with Bird yet again and led the Lakers to a 62-win season. If it wasn't clear by now, these two players and their teams ran the NBA. LA ran through the Western Conference, only losing 2 games on their way to the finals yet again. The Celtics were just behind them, only losing 4 games on their way to meet the Lakers. Bird versus Magic, the rubber match. Boston came out with a Mike Tyson-esque punch, winning Game 1 by 34 and dropping 148 points as a team. The Lakers punched back like Holyfield, winning the next 2 games before dropping Game 4, leading to a 2-2 series tie. The series was billed as Magic vs. Bird 3, but the series truly belonged to Kevin McHale and Kareem. The Lakers took the next game at home and ultimately closed out the Celtics in Boston, winning Game 6, 111-100. Kareem was named Finals MVP, and Magic was walking away victorious over Bird once again. Magic 3, Bird 2. Larry won his 3rd consecutive MVP award during the 1985-86 NBA season, tying him for the most consecutive MVPs with the great ones Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. The Celtics won 67 games, good for second most in franchise history. The Lakers won 62 games again, and Magic was named first team All-NBA. LA once again reached the Western Conference Finals before falling to the Twin Towers, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Ralph Sampson with the Houston Rockets. Bird and Boston capped off their historic season with a championship, beating the Rockets in 6 games, and Larry Bird was given his 3rd Finals MVP. Magic 3, Bird 3. At this point, it felt like one of the two would win the finals every season. The Sixers' fantastic run was coming to an end, the Rockets couldn't beat the Celtics, and some guy out in Chicago had no help and was still too young. Detroit was building a nice team, but they weren't Magic and Bird level, and the craziest part of all this success? Neither one was 30 yet. Magic won his first MVP, leading the Lakers to a 65-win season, while Bird was still an All-NBA first-teamer, leading the Celtics to 59 wins. Lakers and Celtics met yet again in the NBA Finals, after the Celtics faced a challenging path to the finals, in which the conference semifinals and finals each went to 7 games. The Lakers jumped out to a 3-1 series lead before Boston took Game 5 at home. Knowing that a Game 7 in Boston would be a mountain to climb, the Lakers closed out the series in 6 in Los Angeles. Bird played well, but Magic dominated, and the rest of the Showtime Lakers followed suit. Magic was awarded Finals MVP, and this would be the final matchup between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in the finals. The 1987-1988 NBA season featured the Bad Boy Pistons finally getting over the hump, beating the Celtics in the conference finals. The Lakers once again made the finals. Magic and the Lakers won the finals again, beating Isaiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons to capture yet another championship. Magic 5, Bird 3. Bird had notoriously hurt his back building his mother a driveway by himself, and it caught up to him by 1988. He also started dealing with a heel issue that kept him sidelined for most of the 88-89 season. The Lakers would make it back to the NBA Finals, only to be steamrolled by the Pistons. A 4-0 sweep. By the 1989-1990 season, the Celtics were no longer the juggernauts they were in the 1980s. Larry Bird would never make the conference finals again. Amid diminishing health, they would lose in the first round to the Knicks in the 1990 first round, the Pistons in the 1991 conference semifinals, and the Cavaliers in the 1992 conference semifinals. After playing just 45 games in the 1991-1992 NBA season, Larry Bird retired at 36. The Lakers were more relevant than the Celtics, but the 1988 Finals proved to be the last championship that Magic Johnson would win. After making it back to the 1991 NBA Finals again, following a semifinals exit in the 1989-1990 season, the Lakers would lose 4-1 to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, beginning their decade of pure dominance. Magic's career was also cut short after he even more notoriously tested positive for HIV in 1991, right before the beginning of the 1991 to 1992 NBA season. He had won 3 of the past 5 MVPs when this happened, and 9 consecutive top 3 finishes for this award. While people pin these matchups as a true rivalry between the two, Bird and Magic became friends in 1985 when Converse shot a commercial, including the two, outside of Bird's mother's house. They bonded that day, and it was the birth of a lifelong friendship. When Magic tested positive for HIV during a time where it was highly stigmatized and he was receiving loads of media coverage, Bird stood by Magic, and it showed the true colors of their strong friendship. During the peak of their playing days, race was also an issue when comparing Bird and Magic. Bird was the great white hope in Boston in a predominantly black league, and some black NBA fans called him the Great White Hype, calling him overrated and calling his hype being pushed by the media because he was white. These tensions were never there between Magic and Bird, as they clearly just wanted to compete and play against one another. Even though they didn't feed into the hype their rivalry was given, the two truly launched basketball's popularity into the American space. College basketball was a product with legendary players, coaches, and schools, and its product was ready to explode. The 1979 National Championship game sent college basketball into another realm of popularity. CBS, one of the television superpowers at the time, turned aggressive to start airing college basketball and the NCAA tournament. This also led to CBS eventually airing the NBA in prime time as well. In 1982, CBS acquired the rights for the tournament for $16 million for 3 years, a much higher amount than what NBC had them for before that. That 3-year contract doubled to $96 million total in 1985, then $166 million in 1988. The value of those rights went up almost $100 million in less than 10 years. In 2010, CBS signed a 14-year, $10.8 billion deal for those rights. When it comes to the NBA, Bird and Magic are credited with saving the league. And while it's true that they came in during a faltering time for the league and drew new eyes, they weren't the only reasons the league exploded in popularity, David Stern taking over as the commissioner, the big-named and fast-paced ABA players joining the NBA, ESPN being founded and gaining popularity, and a guy named Michael Jordan all helped the league climb to new heights. When the two faced off in their first finals matchup in 1984, the ratings were lower than the 1982 finals between the Sixers and Lakers, with a 13.0 and 12.3 rating for each. These are both significantly higher than the 6.7 rating in the 1981 finals between the Celtics and Rockets, one of the lowest-rated finals matchups in history. That jump happened when the NBA signed a new deal with CBS in December of 1981 that finally got the finals games to air live and not on tape delay. The two drove the popularity for the sport that allowed the next generation to take over. Magic and Bird played together once on the 1992 Dream Team. They were older veterans on the famous squad and served as co-captains for the team. Both were eager to play with one another, and this was Magic's first time in action since testing positive for HIV. They won the gold together, of course, in dominant and historical fashion. At Magic's Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2002, Larry Bird gave the introductory speech.
But I can remember going home and telling my older brother, I just seen the best basketball player I'm probably ever going to see in my life. Well, after this 1979, the NCAA tournament, my brother come up to me, he says, yeah, he's a lot better than you.
And stood up there on stage as Magic gave his speech. They were obviously playing rivals, but it was clear that their relationship was far beyond just basketball. Magic versus Bird. The rivalry saved and propelled the NBA, and their impact on the game of basketball stretches much farther than just ratings and dollar signs, including the 1979 NCAA championship game. Magic bested Bird 3-1 in head-to-head championships and 6-3 total. Both careers were cut short for different reasons, and it's not far-fetched to say they would have still competed for championships if their careers continued. Whoever you believe to be the better player is up to you, but they are both all-time greats who paved the way for NBA legends forever.